This is every SaaS strategy I explained in a tier list. I will be taking the six most common ways on how to grow your SaaS, and I'll be ranking them based on the best way on how to make money in SaaS, which is the S tier, followed by the D tier, which is the worst way on how to make money in SaaS. I am doing this so that you can follow the right strategy to make money in SaaS, and so that you can prevent the worst way possible on how to make money so that you don't waste your money and time. The first one being marketing. There are two ways on how you do marketing, which is the paid option and the organic option. This is the flow, just a simple diagram flow on how the paid marketing strategy works, which is you just put your own money into these platforms like Meta or Google or YouTube ads or Reddit, LinkedIn ads. If you're doing that, maybe SEO ads, which is Google ads, and then you'll be getting signups. Then those free signups would convert into customers, and those people who convert into your product turn into MRR. Now, paid distribution only works if everything after the sign up is dialed in. Meaning to say, if let's say your activation rate is 10% and then your churn rate is 50%, when this happens, you're just pouring money into a leaky bucket, which means that everything that happens after your sign up process, which is the internal part, like your onboarding process, your time to value, your churn rate, your activation rate, all these things. Marketing will not work for you if these things are not dialed in. So if you scale ads on a product broken experience, you're only just gonna be gambling with your money. You would only wanna double down into paid distribution properly only when you've built a solid product experience here. And then followed by that is the organic marketing pathway. Now this is a way of, let's say you're doing content on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, maybe organic SEO, or maybe you have your own community. This is when you'll be getting free traffic. Then those free traffic would turn into free signups, and those free signups would of course convert into paying customers. Now this is where the MRR comes in. The organic flow you'd see is kind of similar to the paid marketing strategy. It's just that the organic path is just more slower than the paid marketing pathway, but it's way more sustainable. Way more sustainable in a way that your users who knows about you, they would typically come from your content like 90% of the time. And when they come from your content, what happens is you're building trust, you're building likability from you as a founder if you're creating content like like this from a founder to a founder. And so they already know who you are, they trust you, which means they're more likely to activate. But it has the same core problem as paid acquisition, and that is if your product experience is broken, organic traffic will still leak out after some time. So yes, I would say that organic marketing is slower than paid, but the traffic would be warmer and it's free. There's no customer acquisition cost compared to those who are spending ads on thousands and thousands of dollars on ads. But if let's say you're doing it on a product with broken experience, then you're literally gambling with your money. And if that happens, doesn't matter if you do paid or free marketing, it still doesn't fix the underlying problem, which is your conversion and retention are broken. So if I were to put it on a tier list to S being the best way to make money and D being the worst way on how to make money, I would put marketing on A tier. This is the reason why is because you would see founders who once they build the product, they would just go blindly straight into marketing and distribution. But again, going back to the underlying problem of if you have a leak in your activation, your conversion, and your retention, then that marketing, it's just failed efforts. Now, this is of course to say that marketing is perhaps the number one most important thing for you to do after you have built your MVP, your product. Fine, marketing is very, very important. And this is also like a cardinal sin that most builders would make is they would spend 3 to 6 months or a very long time building a product only for you to just expect people to just magically sign up into your product. No, you gotta do marketing. That be organic route or the paid route, regardless it is, you have to do marketing. And that applies to any business in general. Doesn't matter if you're doing B2B, B2C, SaaS, and mobile app, whatever. In whatever business, you have to market yourself. The next common growth strategy is feature expansion. Now, this is when you take the current product, you would add new features with the hopes to get more upgrades. or with the hopes to increase the longevity of your retention. And then this is when founders would think that, oh, if I were to build more features, then users would upgrade and they would stay longer. But meanwhile, what's actually happening is your onboarding gets more complex, your UI gets way more cluttered than it is already, and new users would just get overwhelmed way faster than they are currently right now with your product. And I guess the problem with building more features and developing more codes into that is it's like mental masturbation. It feels productive, it looks productive, but you're really building the wrong thing. Because if your users aren't experiencing value from what they already see in your product experience, adding more stuff would just make the problem worse. So hence they would just get more confused. And yeah, I would say this is a big mistake that most builders were to make. And sometimes you just gotta stop building and start distributing. So therefore, when it comes to feature expansion on the tier list, man, I gotta put it on the D tier. Mainly because dude, like, there's so many builders, right? There's so many founders who would obsess with building. It's just like what I mentioned earlier just now when it comes to marketing. You just overly spend most of your time building, expanding a product, but what's the point if those users are getting confused? Those users actually don't understand the value of a product, then all those times that you spend in building a product all goes to waste. The next common way on how to grow your SaaS is charging more. This is the process where you take the current pricing of your SaaS tier list and then you would increase the price. It's either you would to increase the price or and you to add new tier upgrade list, more premium upgrade plans. And then from here, your existing users would pay more in a way of increasing pricing, or they would upgrade to a higher plan with the intention to make more MRR. Now, pricing optimization, it works, but only if your product actually delivers value to justify the new price. Because there are two ways on how this goes. If your free users are barely using what they're paying for right now, increasing the prices is just gonna accelerate churn faster. And they'll just cancel on you because right now your product just feels more expensive and useless. But if let's say your users are already activated, they're really getting consistent value right after sign up. Maybe let's say your time to value is actually really quite fast. And if let's say you have built such a strong product that your users are actually relying to use your product on a daily basis, then yes, this is actually way more encourageable for you to 2x your price. And the bizarre thing about this is most users would actually stay. They would actually value your product more, and the lifetime value of your users are increasing. So the problem is most users are trying to charge more before fixing why users aren't experiencing the value in the first place. Charging is perhaps one of the fastest way for you to increase your MRR, but only if your product experience is all solid. Increasing your price, charging more, adding more tier plans, it's more of an enhancer than a proper foundation. Meaning that if let's say you have a really good product, people are already buying, then having to increase your product would only enhance that really good product. But if let's say you have a general shit product, if you were to increase your pricing, then people are just, they're not gonna find value in that, and they're just gonna think that you're a phony and you're just scamming them. So you can price optimize your way out of bad activation and retention, because if you think about it, retention and activation, they all come down to the experience of the product. When it comes to the tier list, I would put charging more into the B tier. It works, but only in a certain condition, as mentioned earlier just now. Now the next growth strategy of SaaS is free sign up obsession. This is a phenomenon when, let's say, you are doing marketing, and then you would promote your product, that being on Twitter, on Reddit, so you are getting signups. Maybe you would be one of those guys who are obsessing over free signups, posting your dashboards on Twitter saying that, oh, I've increased an extra 100 or 200 signups in my product. And then so let's say out of those 1,000 signups, only 50 of them were to actually activate into your product. And then let's say of those 50%, which is no, I mean 5% of the 50 activated users, only 5 of them converted into paid users. And this is where you make your MRR. Builders would have their priorities fucked. They would go on an idea to go viral on Twitter with the intention so that those people who seen the tweets actually sign up into the product. And what I mean by people having their priorities fucked is because instead of focusing so much solely on getting free signups, why not now you actually optimize on conversion rate? Why not you actually optimize on the trial to sign up rate? Why not you actually, you know, actually focus on retention rate so that those people who are activated don't leave, they don't churn. Because I want you to understand one thing, and this is also like the another I guess a cardinal sin that most builders were to make. You are running a business. This is not a charity. Sure, maybe some people literally build products, or they would get signups for the sake of it. They literally do it as a hobby or for fun. But if let's say those of you who are listening to this, you're actually doing this for business and you want to make money in your product, then have your priorities straight. Optimize for activation rate, optimize for conversion rate, optimize for MRR, not for this another mental masturbation of getting free signups. So for that reason, the free sign up obsession has to go on a B tier. Then moving on to another way on SaaS growth strategy is churn reduction. The flow of churn reduction is that when you're getting users, it's only natural, it's the nature of the game that some of them would churn every month. Doesn't matter how good your pricing is, doesn't matter how good your ideation of your product is, people would churn, and this is just the nature of the game. And then when this happens, it is only natural for you and your engineers for you to fix why they leave. And when you fix why they leave, this is when you keep more users and MRR grows from here on. Now, the thing is, if you to reduce your churn from, let's say, to 5 to 10%, that small metric, quote unquote small metric, can literally double your lifetime value, which means that every dollar that you spend on acquisition becomes twice as much as valuable. But, well, I mean, there's always a but here. There's a catch. Most founders try to fix churn with a way of discount surveys or exit interviews, which is beating around the bush. When the people are churning, this is when you've kind of like asking them, why are you churning? And this is like waving the white flag. And the reason why you're beating around the bush is because you're not really fixing the problem head on. The real reason why users churn could be from confusion, friction, slow time to value, and that they weren't really fully activated in the first place, or in the onboarding flow you're not really activating them. Now, churn reduction is one of the highest, most impact levers you can pull, because keeping customers is always cheaper than acquiring new ones. And I want you to understand that keeping your current users in the long run will make you way more money than continuously chasing new ones. So, with that reason, churn reduction will go into the A tier. The next SaaS growth strategy is the product-led growth. This is when you would be getting existing signups, and then you'll be putting these existing signups into a product-led growth strategy like a simple onboarding flow, activation engine, and retention loops. Now, these are what I call internal growth, because you're basically focusing on the things that are internal in your product with the intention of to increase your MRR and to increase the lifetime value of your product. And this would, of course, increase your MRR. Now, I would say that this is the strategy where your product in itself does the work of converting and retaining users. Because other than the churn reduction, every other strategy like marketing or feature expansion, these are what I call like SaaS-led growth strategy, where you are relying on external things like ads or sales teams or customer acquisition costs to make money in your SaaS. But if you're to focus on these 4 things, like diagnosing what is actually broken in your UX and your UI, ruthlessly simplifying the onboarding process, building retention and habit formation, and value monetization, and all of this is basically the only strategy that fixes the root problem instead of treating symptoms. Let's compare the rest, right? Because paid and organic marketing, it only works if your product experience is optimized. Feature expansion. This only works when your users are activated for it to be effective. And then charging more, users would have to experience the value first in order for you to be able to charge them more. And then churn reduction, this would be impossible without good onboarding and retention. So the conclusion here when it comes to the product-led growth is if you were to fix the internal experience first, then everything else, like your ads, your pricing, your upsells, your feature, whatever feature that you want to add into your product, this would all fall into place. And this is when you can actually print money, when you were to actually fix your product experience and go into the product-led growth strategy. And most founders were to skip this and wonder why it doesn't work. And so for that reason, the product-led growth strategy, it has to go on the S tier. With all the explanation that I talked about, your ads, your pricing, your feature development can only fall into place when your product-led growth is done right. So if you want to scale your SaaS, maybe let's say you're at 10 MRR and you want to 2x, or maybe you want to get to 50k MRR and you don't want to waste your time or money doing it, then under the description of this video you can book on a free one-on-one call with me, and then you can work one-on-one with me directly and we can make money together. So book on a free meeting right now, and I hope to see you there.